All right, crew, here we are back with another top trades. Kind of a surprise for you, maybe, because I haven't introduced it, or I didn't introduce it earlier, but we have Chris Cimorelli with us. Chris made his debut on the channel back in April, and everybody loved him so much and wanted him to come back. He's been busy, but I finally got him back on here to talk about some of the stuff we started talking about in the spring. Now, for a little context, April 22nd, Chris, was the date that you were on with us last. And I don't know if you guys remember, but the market was just barely off its lows then. I'll share my charts here and we can start talking about this. But here's April 22nd, right here. It was this green bar. And we opened the show. I just went back and watched this. We opened the show with Chris saying, hey, I'm glad to be here. We finally got a green day. And we started talking about the extreme amount of pessimism that was in the markets right then. And instead of going with the herd mentality there, Chris, you were talking about how you thought the market was up for a big move higher. Maybe we wouldn't go back to new all-time highs, but how we were overdue for a big move higher starting the week that we were talking. So you called that. You were talking about using the volatility in our favor, which we've been doing. You were talking about Ethereum. And at the time, Ethereum was like something like 1,700. It's almost doubled now. We're back over 3,000. So again, you made a lot of great calls, and now we're back here, and it feels like the opposite kind of market right now to me, where everybody is piling in super bullish after this big long run. Before we jump into some of the bigger topics, what do you make of this market action that we're seeing right now?
Well, I do think it was funny because, on April 22nd, there were still these China fears in the market and these tariff fears in the market. And of course, we just gone through Liberation Day and the tariff tantrum and the trade war. And the market jumped up at first because Trump announced a 90-day pause, which expired last week and the market doesn't care anymore, go figure. But then once the real mission of China came into focus, the market started freaking out again. But it is funny you point that out. I think it was an hour after our call, the market started moving higher and it really hasn't stopped since. So it is a really good time to regroup, I think, because I don't want to say we're in for a pullback necessarily, but I do think that we are going to need to shake out some of the weak hands and maybe trim some fat here pretty soon because, the market's basically flat today. It's down a little bit from its highs, but it just popped up another 0.5% today. And it's just, I'm a little afraid of heights, Greg. I'll be honest with you. I have been ever since I was a kid, but I do find that sometimes I have to get over my fear of heights, and I have done that very successfully in this rally so far. But I think some things could be coming up that could potentially spook the market a little bit. One, we do have the China end of its 90-day pause. It's going to be less than a month from now, and as we recall, that was really the real mission of this trade war is getting some of our manufacturing back from China and basically punishing China for not playing fair for so long, for meddling in our elections and meddling in our currencies and stealing intellectual property and all of that. So there's that coming up, but then we also have a lot of debt that we have to refinance before the end of this year, about $9 trillion worth. And when you look at like the flattening in the yield curve right now, there's very little demand for treasuries, especially with stocks going up as much as they are. So I think what's probably going to happen is at some point in the next couple of months, there's probably going to be probably just a minor pullback. It might feel scary because the market's just so happy right now. It may only be like a 5% pullback or something like that, which is going to feel insane. And it's going to hurt a lot of people who are over leveraged right now. But then the Fed's going to cut rates and it's going to keep shooting up. I mean, I said at the start of this year, which felt pretty foolish, but I said at the start of this year that we were entering a market environment with very, very little risk. Then, of course, April happened. But fast forward 6 months later, 7 months later, and that's kind of what it feels like. And all of the things that I was talking about that were going to drive this market higher, such as, the peak in the money supply is going higher. Cutting taxes and regulations, that's happening too. And then of course cutting rates, which, there's been a pause since December, but now, if you look at some of the polling in the Federal Reserve, they are looking at cutting rates again a couple of times before the end of this year. So I think don't overextend yourself, don't over leverage yourself, because at some point there's probably going to be a nasty couple of days. I don't know what's going to cause it exactly. It could be China, it could be refinancing the debt and things of that nature. But I do think this just keeps going. I really do.
Well, right. I mean, you get these situations where the market is going to be looking for an excuse to sell.
Yes.
And that's why I'm kind of perking my ears up this week, because I mean, we had CPI obviously today, we have PPI tomorrow, we have earnings starting to come in. So there's plenty of these little excuses that are going to start popping up for people to say, well, I might want to take some money off the table here. And it makes a lot of sense. And like you said, I think that's really important. The idea that any type of drop from here is going to hurt, because recency bias is stocks only go up. And it's amazing how quickly we've erased our brains over what happened back in February, March, and April.
Yeah.
And none of that mattered. And like you said, with the tariff thing, it didn't all go away. It's all still there. The market just decided it didn't care about it. And that's what happens a lot. You get these situations where these news items get pushed to the front of the stove and everything starts bubbling over and people freak out. And then all of a sudden, back to the back burner and something else matters more. And I mean, if you look at the market action, even over the past couple of weeks, every time it looked like things were going to start to slow down, whichever big theme was running would take a back seat. Another big theme would pop up. It feels like these theme stocks, AI, quantum, drones, space stocks, flying cars, take your pick. We're still doing this big rotation in, amongst the retail crowd, where it's like, okay, this is the hot sector this week. This is the hot sector this week. And even though we're extended here, I'm looking at this as, and I was just talking about this with Ian earlier today, this is one of those situations where I think you just have to keep playing those stocks until they stop working, and you have to kind of get over your fear of heights, like you were saying. And so that's what I'm trying to do over at the trading desk, is like, okay, I'm still trying to trade these names. Some of them might not work out, but at the same time, we got to take our shots while we can, because when we do get that quick 5% plus correction, I mean, who knows? I'll just get out my little ruler here. Even if we drop from here back down and just retest those recent highs, you're looking at a 2.5% drop. If we got a 6.5% drop from here, we'd be just right back down at the 200-day. It's really not that big a deal, but of course it would feel horrible in the moment. And I'm sure people would feel like their hair was on fire and they'd be running around selling everything they own. So we just have to be mentally prepared for those situations to pop up, especially when we're up here in the stratosphere, like you've been talking about. But back to those themes, you have a much more fundamental handle on a lot of these stocks than I do. I'm trading the charts. You're trading a mix of different things with these. Which of these themes do you think has the most staying power in this particular market right now? Which one are you most excited about?
Of these, which themes?
I'm talking about the tech themes like AI, quantum.
I see.
Drones, all those.
Drones. Absolutely. That's what my next piece in Altucher's investment network is. And for the record, if we didn't establish this, I mostly work with James Altucher here at Paradigm. I'm the analyst on our microcap product, and I'm also writing in his flagship newsletter, Altucher's Investment Network. But that's my theme for this next issue is the drone market. And we obviously saw Red Cat has been shooting up. I own Red Cat. I've been in that for a couple of months. This is one of these smaller drone plays. This, by the way, has a valuation just over $1 billion. What does that say? 960 million. So not even $1 billion.
Wow.
I still think that's a fantastic buy, and I'll explain why. And I think we're entering something right now that I think you could almost call it AI 3.0. We've just left over 2.0. We're going to 3.0. 1.0 was the chips. That's NVIDIA. They made the hardware that goes inside all of the computers that create the software, which is kind of like what companies like Palantir Technologies do. And I'm up about 1,800% on Palantir. I bought that in May 2023, right at the bottom before it started shooting up. I'm not sold it. I don't plan on selling it, even though it's trading at 600 times earnings. I don't care. No one else is doing what that company's doing. But now I think we're going to be entering this realm where we see that what does that software do? Well, that software is going to go inside physical AI 3.0. And I'm not talking about humanoid robots. I'm talking about, more automation in factories, but also drone technology. And the reason why drones is probably the most interesting aspect of the AI market and the robotics market to me is because China has the ability to manufacture about 500,000 drones per month. And supposedly they can crank that up to about 700,000 in wartime. Right now, the United States only has the production capacity to do a few thousand a month. So China has literally, they may have 100 times more production capacity in drones than we do now. And if you wonder why that matters, you just need to take a look at what's going on in the war in Ukraine right now. Drones are deciding the outcome of that war. And by the way, we've shipped a lot of our drones over to Ukraine, but even Ukraine has a much larger drone army and production capacity than the United States. Theirs is about 10 times larger than ours, which just makes you start thinking, like if there was to be some sort of conflict with like a China or a Russia, and drones are sort of the new face of battle, that could get really ugly. And I think the Trump administration understands that. If you look at this recent commercial that Pete Hegseth put out, I mean, he was basically saying that we were mired in regulations while, our enemies were creating all of these cheap drones. He's like, not anymore. And he has this drone fly down and deliver him a memo that he signs. So the good thing for us is that all of these companies are very, very low priced. Even AeroVironment, which is the kind of the leader in drones right now. It's AV, Greg. They have about a 12, $13 billion valuation. And that's the biggest one. And it's basically a mid cap, right? So if you just think about the amount of drones we're really going to need, like China's literally 100 times ahead of us. There's tens of billions of dollars that's going to go into this sector over the rest of Trump's administration, and probably beyond that as well, just due to matters of national security. So, I mean, I personally have a little bit of exposure in red cap, but also some of the flying car stocks, quote unquote, like Joby, Joby.
Yeah, those have been hot.
I mean,
Yeah,
that one,
straight up.
you can see that's breaking out to new, I don't know if it's new all-time highs, but it's certainly new highs in this cycle. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess it is almost at
getting
new all-time highs. It's getting pretty
getting
close
right
there.
back to those. I don't know if this is an IPO or a SPAC. I assume it's a SPAC, but it's getting right back toward those highs right here. So this is a nice big post IPO base. So I mean, if this consolidates somewhere between 15 and 13 for a little while, then it could have an even bigger breakout.
Yeah. But there's two things going on here, Greg. I mean, there's speculation in the market for new technology, and some of these technologies that were sort of hot and hyped back in 2021, because that's really the sort of environment we're reentering is 2020 and 2021. But there's also this underlying national security issue, and all of these companies are tied to it. I mean, even commercial drone technology, like what Joby creates, can be transferred into military operations. So all of these companies have valuable technology, and there can be buyouts at some point to just sort of like take the production capacity, reconfigure it for the military. So I think it's worth having some exposure to all of these different stocks. Another one I like is BLDE, is Blade, and that's more of a commercial company. But if you look at their actual revenues, they have more revenues than basically all of these other companies, even though its market capitalization is very low. But they're focused more on, again, on the commercial side, and also they have a medical delivery business as well. Uh, so I also own this one. I just think it's again, it's worth having exposure here because this is a trend that's probably going to last for years, because it's going to take years to catch up to China. So these are kind of seeds I'm planting in my portfolio for stocks that I think can run 10, 20, 30 times higher over the next handful of years. Just because you don't want to, don't fight the Fed, don't fight the government, certainly don't fight Trump. Um, so these are the kind of things you want to own.
Well, it feels like we're getting to some sort of inflection point um, in these stocks where the hype is really meeting reality, and that's a great place to be because that is the kind of intersection where you can really see those gains start to ramp up. And I think we're seeing that in something like RCAT right now, where I think what was the news right here on Friday? It was a Pentagon contract or something about the
Yes.
Pentagon. So I mean, like something like that in such a small name. I mean, we were just talking. This is, what, $1 billion stock. That's basically nothing. We're
And
dealing.
the brutal point in this, if I didn't make this clear, is all of these companies are small. Even AeroVironment, AVAV is small. It's a 12, $13 billion company. None of these companies can meet the production capacity and the demand from the Pentagon right now. Not a single one of them can, which means all of them are probably going to go up. So you just want to buy like 3 or 4 of them and don't look at them for the next 3 years.
I like
That's that's my recommendation. Just shut up, buy, put them away. I don't know about you guys. I have 2 brokerage accounts. I have my active trading one, and I have my shut up and buy and don't look at it account. This probably goes in the latter of the two.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's not a bad strategy because it protects you from any type of bad decisions,
Yes.
because when you have a stock, and this can be even a big stock, but like especially when you have these little stocks, even when they're in these rip-roaring uptrends, there's going to be those gut check moments. And those moments can last for months, by the way. I'm not just saying it's these split-second drops, but you look at a stock like this, I mean, obviously, like go back in my time machine and buy it at 60 cents, that would be great. But you see these run-ups that it makes right here. It went all the way up to $14
Yeah.
back in January, and then it was down to 5 in March. These are the types of shakeout moves you can expect from these huge emerging powerful trends. And again, like I was saying, it's not just these small stocks. You see it in the Amazons and Apples too. Anything in a big secular uptrend like that is going to have these moments where it falls out of favor, where something negative might come out and be pervasive in the news for a little while. But if you have a portfolio option, if I want to call it that, like you have, where it's like, this is my close your eyes and buy pile, and I'm not going to touch it no matter what. Maybe you have some sort of hard stop or something like that. But once you get like a profit cushion where you have like, okay, I've got a double in this stock. Now I don't have to think about it or worry about it. I'm just going to
Right.
let it be and let it sit. I think that's a great strategy right there. Um, but yeah, it feels like these theme stocks, like beyond the bigger stories, the traders are just in and out of them. And I mean, if we look at something, even like I haven't looked at it today, but I use ARC Innovation as kind of like my hype index. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily
It's a great sentiment indicator.
want to trade it, but yeah, it's a sentiment indicator. It's like, okay, these are the most hype stocks. These are Kathy's favorite stocks right here. And if you look at this performance right here, I mean, this thing has not stopped. Yeah, it's red today and it's had some red days, but we're looking at something that's up almost 90%.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
this chart's kind of skewed because I mean, it did get chopped up pretty badly in the Q1 meltdown right there, but almost a double since April
Yeah.
8th. It certainly feels like risk appetite isn't
Hmm.
going anywhere yet. But that we see, but again, that also has me worried about like, okay, how bad does the market have to fall on its face over the next couple months, in August and September during the traditional volatility periods, if you're looking at seasonality, how bad do we have to trip up in order to reset and to get everybody back to zero before we can move up higher again? That's my main concern right now.
From March 2020 to February 2021, nothing happened but market go up.
Yep. Yep.
And it's just starting to feel like it could be one of those other periods. But I'm really having to keep my own wits in check. And I know that when I reach the point where I'm just throwing caution to the wind, that's exactly when the market's going to top because I've done very well the last 3 months. I won't lie. I've done very, very well the last 3 months. It's been a very, very good year so far. But I do think that we have to pull back at some point but it's hard because now even like crypto is going up, right?
Right.
Like it's just and by the way, the hedge funds haven't participated in this rally as well as like retail has. So how long is it before the hedge funds start piling in or wait for a pullback? So it's one of those things where I don't know if I don't think I can time when this pullback is going to happen. I've tried a couple of times now in this rally where I've just put small positions into downside bets and they haven't really worked out. But it's good. It's portfolio insurance. Sometimes you want to do that, especially if you're making money on the rest of your portfolio.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, it's hard to do. Like, and like I'm a market timer. That's all part of trading. And a lot of these times you have to, pick your spots and guess. But I like that idea of just buying a little bit of protection when we're extended, because we could absolutely go higher. But at the same time, that protection is going to get expensive once the market rolls over. And so you kind of have to be ahead of the curve if that's your strategy. If you're saying, okay, I've made so much money over X period, whether it's a couple months or a few weeks or whatever, I'm going to buy some very short-term dated puts here, which is, I assume, the way you would approach something like this, and say like, okay, if I get a sharp drop in the market, then I can take those off. No harm, no foul. If nothing happens, it's a small position, and look at it that way.
Exactly. If I'm up a certain amount today, I might take like a quarter of today's gains and buy some puts that expire sometime in the next week, just because it's probably going to come out of nowhere. And like, I don't know, you look at the SPY right now and it's basically flat over the last week. And
Yeah.
it's we're not in one of these environments where things are going to go up and up and up and up and then crash. It's going to stall out and then fall over.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think.
Yeah. Now, you have a bigger bearish idea that you wanted to share today, and it actually be going against like some bullish comments you made earlier this year, and I think it's pretty interesting because a lot's changed since April. But tell me about what you're thinking about Tesla right now, because I think
Tesla is still Cathie Wood's largest position in ARKK.
Yeah,
and that's not what's helped her go up 90% over the last 3 months. That's stuff like CRISPR, which is up about 50%. I'm up about 50% on that. Circle, which I'm up about 500% on. She must have gotten in on the IPO. Yeah, Tesla. So I finally dumped all of my Tesla shares. I did. With not in like a month ago when Donald Trump and Elon Musk had their bromance.
You want to call it a bromance?
Well, it was during Pride Month, so something weird was going on where these guys broke up and they weren't taking it very well, but so obviously there was that whole thing. But then it came up again, about a week or so ago, with Elon Musk saying he wants to create a third party and he's actually going through with it. And after that, I just gave up. I sold. I'm done with Tesla for now. I could get back in at some point, but I think for Tesla, he's got three things working against him right now. And the big one is sales are declining. We know that in Tesla. The second thing is that I just don't really see the enthusiasm for the new products he's developing, like the robotaxi and the humanoid robot. I think there's going to be major social stigma around humanoid robots, because that's when you really start getting into like replacement theory. But also, just like the robotaxi, he's dealing with huge competition with Waymo, which is owned by Google, which I do own, which I think is a very, very good setup right now. Google's going to shoot up to new all-time highs, I think probably within the next month or two.
Okay.
And then of course, the big thing is the brand is dead. He's killed the brand. It used to be Democrats and leftists. They believe in climate change and they like electric vehicles, and also they have money and the cars are expensive, and it's kind of like a, hey, look at me sort of brand. And then there's been like 6 to 9 months where Republicans are kind of like, I could own a Tesla. I was thinking the same thing. It was just like, maybe I'll buy a Tesla. I drive a manual Mercedes. I like gas guzzling, premium gas burning cars that go vroom. I don't like this quiet shit, but I was thinking, you know what, they're kind of cool, and Elon's kind of cool in my book right now. But I just think that the brand's been tarnished. So those are three really, really big catalysts for. I mean, I'm not talking about a 50% cut in the stock. I think this thing really could go back to $100. I know that's a bold claim. People will say, no, it's crazy, but I I think he's really, really, really screwed himself up. He's obviously a genius. He's a genius of hard work and efficiency and of attracting the right engineers to his companies, but he's stretched himself so thin. He's not Superman and he's not Tony Stark either. He is just a man, and now he wants to go to war against the political establishment. And I can't take him seriously right now. I really just can't do it. It's like there's obviously something with the guy. And I don't know what it is, and I have a lot of respect for him, but I it, it seems like maybe the power has gotten to his head. He is a very, very big reason, maybe the biggest reason why Donald Trump is back in the White House. And now he feels like, his credit hasn't been, and that has not been appreciated enough. And he rightfully is concerned about things like government spending. I think government spending is a big reason why the stock market's going up, because I think the market's picked up on the fact that, like, yeah, Trump's not stopping government spending. It's going to keep going. I think,
Right.
by the way, that was the big concern at the start of the year. Not the tariff so much, but the things like Elon Musk with Doge, but also Trump telling Pete Hegseth, hey, I want you to cut the Department of Defense by 8% a year.
Right.
That's 40% cumulative over 4 years. That's freaked me out a little bit. And I don't know if you remember this, Greg. At the start of the year, I was polling some of our other analysts here. I'm like, are you guys at all concerned about some of these like flags they're throwing up that they might actually start seriously considering like the deficit and the debt and all that stuff? And everyone's like, no, no, it's not going to happen. And I didn't listen to my own concerns, but I think that's a big reason why the market dropped at the start of the year. I mean, the tariffs,
Fair.
obviously that as well, but I think that underlying concern, which tariffs were a part of, by the way. So it's like, let's get some money coming into the country. We gotta fix this spending and this deficit issue. Whereas now, I think it's just sort of, the important thing is Trump should do what he did in his first term, focus on growth, and the goal is to grow faster than inflation and the debt, and eventually, hopefully, maybe you inflate the debt away. That's the only chance we have at this point. In long term, it's not a very good chance, but yeah, that's why I'm out of Tesla. I mean, and it trades for I mean, how many times earnings does it trade for? What's its PE? Is it 100? Is it 200? It's not as much as
I have no idea. But I think you're onto something here. It's not a stock that I want to like get heavily short right now.
Sure.
But at the same time, I feel like it's losing what I call like the Elon premium.
Yeah.
Like, let's say like last year when everybody was all hopped up and high on the election and everything that was happening, the market was screaming higher and all that. Elon was at his peak right there. And then of course the magic kind of wore off, as it always does with, big events and government and all that stuff. But I think you're in a situation where the worry went from, oh my God, what if Elon quits at Tesla? Because if Elon wasn't at Tesla, then the stock would not trade this way. It would not trade for the premium. There's the Elon premium that's attached to the stock for sure, whether it's positive or negative. It goes both ways. But if he wasn't attached to the stock, it would be a totally different beast, and it might as well change its ticker, because I think it would trade completely differently than it has traded in the past and then how it trades right now. But now I think it suffers from the problem that you can't switch teams more than once in this country. The middle has been carved out of America, whether you want to say middle class or the middle in politics. Everything is on the extreme sides. And you can go from one extreme to the other and be a hero and say, like, look, I've woken up and I realized that this is the way to go now, and this is the way things should be, and I was wrong, and this is why, and now I'm going to be the hero to this half of whatever that thing might be. In this case, politics. You can do that once. I don't think you can do that more than once, because now his whole thing is, oh, I'm moving to the middle. It's like, okay, well, this side hates you, and now this side hates you, and there's nobody in that trough of the middle right now. And so you basically put yourself on this island, which is political suicide, and I don't really think he understands, maybe he does understand, but he doesn't care about those sort of things. I think he wants to be liked. I think you can follow his Twitter and like he wants to be acknowledged and liked
Well,
in some
look at the
degree.
5-year chart on this one, Greg. I mean, when you gotta go further than that.
There we go.
So this puts it into perspective. He's been the richest man in the world for 4 years. That changes your mindset. It changes your psychology. It changes the way you
Yeah.
think about the world. Um, I mean, I remember in 2021, I thought I was the most powerful man in the world because I'd made so much money over the last year. It was the first time I'd made like serious money, in my life. And of course, I just turned 34 years old that last week, so I had to experience something like that. And then I experienced the 2022 where I lost a lot of money, and of course I've made it all back. But I think when you go that long being the richest man in the world, you think money's not an issue, and you think you're more powerful than you really are. I think that's what he's going through right now. And I I I just wouldn't be surprised. I mean, and you look at, so this is a logarithmic chart. I'm talking about this thing pulling back to like 100, which I
There you
realize
go.
is like a 70% drop, but that puts it into a little bit more perspective here. Um, it was basically there in 2022, 2023.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
No,
I
no, no,
mean,
go further, the pullback before that. There you go.
yeah, $100 in January of 23. It wasn't that long ago.
So
Feels like
it,
forever
it
ago.
it happens already, and I like the way you said it. Like the Elon premium is sort of dying down. So I mean, I think he's also trying to do some things right now where he's trying to like get Tesla to like own like a stake in XAI and things like that. And it's like, well, why is he doing that? It's because he's trying to just like shore up his flagship company. So I yeah, I would stay away from this one right now. I would just avoid it like the plague. I know that he's a sensational person, and for all I know, it could go to 500, but I don't know what the catalyst for that is, because I don't think it's the robotaxi, and I don't think it's the humanoid robot, and those are the only potential aces he has up his sleeve right now. So I don't know what it is. I'm excited about his other companies, but you can't invest in those easily. So like XAI and SpaceX, I'm very, very excited about those. But
Totally. I would say that like from a tactical perspective. So all the your bigger idea aside, or your worries about Musk aside, looking at this from a tactical perspective, um, if I wanted to play downside in this, I would want to wait until it was breaking below the 280s right here. That would kind of be my thing. I want to see some downside because right now, I mean, like I think it could go either way in the short term. I think it's entirely
yes,
possible that we're wrong and this breaks out, and then once it
yes,
gets above 367, it could fly, and it could be for various reasons. Who knows? But I'd want to see it get below these swing lows from June right here. And I don't remember what was the news event here that dropped it 14% back in early June. Do you
that
know what
that
that was?
was the
Was that
Trump was on Epstein's
that
is
was
on
okay. That was okay.
and
That
that
was
was
his
the next
Twitter
day. Trump
meltdown.
was like, maybe I'm just going to
Gotcha.
take away all of Elon's contracts.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. 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 That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, like, if we drop below those lows, then maybe it's time to start thinking like bearishly about this and a short-term move to 225. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely interesting. I think it's interesting to think about. Elon's, no matter what you think about it, I think he's like one of the most interesting people in the world.
Yes.
And he's definitely polarizing. So we'll see how that pans out right there. But let's move from Tesla to crypto, because I think I don't want to say weird, but some very interesting things are happening in crypto around. Even today, we have Bitcoin, which has made this incredible move. It's pulling back about 3%. Not, the end of the world here. That's kind of what I would expect after a run like this, to get, them to shake the branches a little bit. But look at Ethereum. Look at how Ethereum is just hanging tight in this area right here. It's starting to feel like the tide is changing and the narrative is very quickly changing around Ethereum. I've been talking about this, Chris, over the past few weeks with Enrique and some other folks around here, where I'll walk by the television and CNBC's on mute, and there's Tom Lee talking about Ethereum on CNBC in the morning power hour or whatever. I just feel like there's this groundswell surrounding it, and this snapback trade could have some serious legs. It would not surprise me that at some point very soon we're talking about it retesting those recent highs around 4,000 or higher. And I wanted to get your take on how you see this whole thing developing.
Yeah, I don't own Ethereum right now. I own ETHT, which is one of the Ethereum double plays. It's a little leveraged, but I'm up about 140% on that right now. I bought it pretty close to the bottom in April. And so this basically doubles the daily move in Ethereum, but it has a little bit of time decay. You can go back to Ethereum, Greg.
Yep. I was just checking.
Yeah. But the point I want to make is that I do think it's going to run to a new all-time high quickly, which is about 4,500. Actually, I think it's 4,800, but I think it's going to run to 45.
Yeah, it's closer to 5, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And even
yeah, it was about 48.
Right here. Yep.
And that would basically be a 50% move, which would be a double in some of these 2x leveraged like ETHT. Another one is ETHU. So once those hit the 45 or 5,000, I'm probably going to get out of those double leverage plays. But I mean, for me, my minimum price target on Ethereum this year, 2025, is 5,000. I do think it's going to breach an all-time high this year because we're in that historical cycle with crypto, right? 2017, 2021, 2025. Some people call it the banana zone. The banana is just like the exponential curve, right?
Yeah. Hockey stick. Yeah.
Yeah, the hockey stick. Yeah, that's a slightly more technical way of putting it. But it's the second year or the year after a halving cycle. So of course the halving is an event that's written into Bitcoin's blockchain where the number of Bitcoin that each block contains gets split in half, which essentially slows the rate of new production of Bitcoin on the market. It's a finite amount of it to begin with. And this often correlates with a supply-demand squeeze. And of course, it happened a little sooner last year because we had all the institutional adoption with, BlackRock, like their IBIT ETF, and all the other, and of course, governments are moving in on it too. There's more corporations that are developing Bitcoin treasury strategies. So there was a huge run up last year, but it's kind of stalled out since then because the cycle of this market was kind of front loaded this time, but now it's kind of catching back up to where we're now returning to that 4-year cycle where like the May to November in like 2017 and 2021 was just absolutely crazy. And the last 2 months, this like May to July, has been setting up something that looks like it's about to just go berserk again. So I think Bitcoin's going to hit at least 150 by the end of this year. I think Ethereum's going to hit at least 5,000 by the end of this year. And these could be very conservative targets. I mean, the way Bitcoin's behaving right now, this could happen by November. I mean, it just went to 120 from a retest of 100 like that. It took 2 weeks. So, and I just, with the speculation that's happening in the markets and I think we're definitely in a sweet spot with crypto right now. There's a really interesting indicator that I like. It's called the Crypto Fear and Greed Index. And it only hit extreme greed like 2 times in the last couple of years. And that was basically when last year in the like January to April range, which was like BlackRock releasing its ETF and also the crypto halving. Right. And then again during the election, like right after the election, when you saw stuff like XRP finally like shooting up like 400%. Those were the 2 times we saw extreme greed in the crypto market. And today, I'm actually curious about this myself right now. I try to check this thing like once a week. Last week it was at about 50 out of 100. So there was very, very so today it's shot up. We're at 70 on the Crypto Fear and Greed Index. And this kind of mimics the CNN stock market, which is one of my favorite sentiment indicators. So we're at a 70, which is very close to extreme greed in crypto right now, which to me suggests it's probably going to go to extreme greed. and then hang
Yeah.
out there for a couple of months, and then maybe we could see a pullback. But I mean, I don't necessarily think that we're going to repeat the same cycle where like, oh, it peaks in November of the fourth year and then crashes, just because there's now so much institutional adoption
Mhm.
of Bitcoin that's happening, and now Ethereum. The thing with Tom Lee is, he's now the chairman of the board of this company called what is it, Bit Mining or something like that. Bit
Yeah.
Mining Imperial Technologies or something like that. I can't remember what the company is, but they just raised a lot of money to buy Ethereum. There's another company that James and we both own and recommend in Microcap Millionaire. It's Bit Digital. The ticker is BTBT.
Yeah. We talked about that a lot.
You've talked about that a lot in this channel. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they are very, very close to being the largest corporate holder of Ethereum. They own 100,000 units of it. Coinbase, for reference, owns about 120,000. So they're
Yeah.
only about 20K units behind Coinbase. So there's this talk that like Tom Lee's company is going to be the MicroStrategy of Ethereum. I think this company probably is going to be the one to do it because they've basically reconfigured their entire business to do that.
Hmm.
They also have a high performance computing business that they're probably going to spin off. So it could be a situation where you get like two stocks in one.
Right.
The problem with this stock is that they've issued a lot of shares over the last year to buy all this crypto. So it's almost $1 billion company now. We got in this company when it was like a $400 million company, and we've basically made no money on it because they've issued so many shares.
Yeah.
So it's toxic in that way, but I think that this strategy is going to pay off, because I think most people are underestimating how fast Ethereum is going to shoot up. When that happens, you're going to see just a major squeeze in these kind of stocks. I'm actually curious what BTBT's short interest is. Um,
Well, that's what I was kind of getting at with the Tom Lee stuff. Not necessarily like what his motives were around talking
yeah,
about it, but just the fact that he is on TV talking about Ethereum when it doesn't feel like there's this big groundswell around Ethereum just yet. You know what I mean? Like Ethereum really fell off for a very long time. And then all of a sudden you have all of this tokenization talk
yeah,
just starting to flood into the markets. It just feels like there's this big change in the winds surrounding how people are talking about it. And I think we also have a situation now where Bitcoin is a maturing asset. So while I think Bitcoin can and will do very well, I don't necessarily think we're going to see like Bitcoin double or triple in a month, but I think it's not beyond the realm of possibility where Ethereum will double, triple in a month. I think that's entirely possible just due to the
yeah.
size difference and the attention difference on those two, very different coins right there. And so that's kind of how I think about it. Like Ethereum is your smaller cap, faster moving version of this trend. And Bitcoin is the Apple. It's the big one that everybody knows and understands.
Yeah. Well, Ethereum is the center of the digital asset revolution, not Bitcoin. And it was losing some market share to Solana, but after its upgrade about 3 months ago, it has definitely made itself a lot more competitive, and it's kind of making Solana look like a chump again at the moment. So it's
Oh,
reclaimed its position at the center of the digital asset revolution. Of course, it never lost its position as the second largest crypto,
right.
but
See, that's what
you're
I'm going off of. See, you have all this extra knowledge. I'm just going off of just pure size of,
yeah,
But you
yeah,
also mentioned XRP, and we talked about XRP on the last call. I don't know if you remember that or not, but this
yes.
chart is incredibly compelling to me right here. And I don't know what the bull case for XRP is, but this this breakout right here above 230, it feels like after some consolidation, this has legs, and we could see something very similar to what we saw back in November again. That this thing's just ready to rip and is in the middle of something huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's got a pretty sizable market cap itself. It's 170 billion. This is one that could go to 500 billion fairly quickly. So, I mean that's more or less a triple from here. It could hit, $10 in this cycle. That's pretty close to a triple. Um, but I do think, yeah, by the end of this year, this is a harder one for me. I own it. I own quite a bit of it. It's just, to me, it's one of those things where I've had to accept this is a long-term hold.
Hmm.
I know some people who it was a long-term hold for them 5 years ago and they never sold, and now they're like rich now, and they have no intentions of selling it either. Or if they're not rich, they're in a position now where it's just like, well, all I have to do is just keep holding this thing, and I'm going to retire a lot earlier than I thought I would. And I don't own enough of it that I think I'll ever get there with this one. But XRP is a true cryptocurrency like XLM, like Stellar Lumens, which also XRP and XLM were the two big ones that went up after the election. As true cryptocurrencies, they have actual utility, and of course, XRP's utility is international, exchanges and money orders, which has already gotten a piece of that market, and it's been adopted by many, many banks. So I just think as we're finally seeing the crypto market be legitimized, right? As you said, Bitcoin's maturing asset. It's become like digital gold. It's become sort of like the safety pin in digital assets. But now you've got people actually going into tokenization, which is, tokenizing real world assets so that you could own a digital piece of, like, say, your favorite sports team or Taylor Swift's next album. If she wanted to tokenize like 5% of the royalties to it, she could do that and sell it, and they would trade accordingly. Those are the kind of things that tokenization is going to unlock. So instead of gambling on your favorite sports team is going to win or not, you just buy a piece of the tokenized version of your favorite sports team or something like that. So that's going to benefit things like Ethereum, but also just as the international money transfer market grows, that's going to benefit XRP because it's just a faster way of sending money, faster, cheaper way of sending money. And again, already some banks have incorporated it into their networks. So, there's we're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars that XRP could, be able to transfer. And at that point, there's still some people who think that XRP can go up 10 or 20 or 50x from here on a long enough time horizon with a lot of inflation.
Yeah.
Which seems entirely possible, with all this money printing and things like AI.
Yeah.
But
So not to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to say that over the next, let's say over the next 12 months, you'd rather be all in Ethereum than all in something like XRP.
no, not necessarily. I think those two are probably gonna track each other.
Okay.
And again, I don't own Ethereum, but I do own XRP. I own the 2x Ethereum, which I'm going to sell at some point and put into some alts. One of my favorite alts, I own a lot of, is Bitcoin Cash, which is BCH.
Okay.
And the reason why I own that is
Nope, that's Banco de Chile. I'm gonna have to find it. Hold on a second.
might be BCH USD.
Let's see if I can see it here. Crypto, Bitcoin Cash. Where are you?
Here it
Bitcoin
is.
Cash US dollar. There we go.
Yeah.
And USD.
So you can most people don't know this. You can actually buy Bitcoin for $500, not 120,000. You can do it with this right here. So this was a hard fork off the Bitcoin network a few years ago. And a hard fork just basically means it was like a digital clone of Bitcoin. So it has this very similar structure where it's limited to 21 million units. It just hasn't seen the same adoption and popularity as Bitcoin, but my theory is that as Bitcoin keeps going up, more and more people are going to realize there's this very similar twin asset that's only $500. And this is something that, if Bitcoin goes to 1 million, this will probably be 50,000 or 100,000, not 500.
Does it
Because
perfectly
it's essentially the same architecture.
does it perfectly correlate with Bitcoin, or does it just trade on its own? Like,
It correlates just like the rest of the crypto market does, where
Okay.
it only goes up when we're in a crypto bull market for sure. It hasn't done a ton in this cycle, but it is about up 60% off of its lows from April. But again, I just have this hunch that there's gonna be some demand in it because it's actually, as far as cryptocurrencies goes, it is a better, faster version of Bitcoin as far as like using it as money goes. That's why they called it Bitcoin Cash. Whereas
Okay.
Bitcoin is very, very slow and cumbersome. It can only transfer a few transactions, only process a few transactions per second. And I don't know exactly what the transfer or processing speed on Bitcoin Cash is, but it is a lot faster. So and this is another one that I hold, and I own a lot of this one, and I may not ever sell this one just because I think it's going to see some adoption fairly soon, just because it is essentially the same thing as Bitcoin. It's not, again, it was a clone off of the original Bitcoin network. And it's just people just kind of forgot about it. And most people just don't even know it exists and don't realize that, like, oh, you can get a piece of like one of those 21 million Bitcoins. There's another 21 million of them over here. Like you can have them. So I think there's going to be an incredible price speculation in this fairly soon.
That's interesting. Yeah, my only thing would be like, I mean, are there really a lot of people out there buying like whole Bitcoins? I mean, most people buy fractional, I would say. That would be my like one pushback. So what would be like what would be the main differentiator here? I mean, I can
I
buy as
want to
many
I want to
dollars
own a
of
whole
Bitcoin
if
I
I want
want.
to own a whole Bitcoin,
A
do you
whole
want to
Bitcoin.
spend $500 or $120,000?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I just think more people are going to figure out that thing I just said, and and they're going to be like, okay, well, it's too late for Bitcoin, but this is the same thing essentially.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's
Um,
there's just not that many Bitcoin. Like you see, all these people are buying them. People are like, what else can I buy to put in my crypto digital asset treasury?
Gotcha. I like that argument better.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Um, I guess last topic that we really have to hit on here, since it's been such a beast, is this insane move in MP. It's continuing. It's up 25% more today. It's up to 60 bucks.
Yeah.
This thing won't stop. It feels like this has been the rare earths theme has just been sort of percolating, under the surface here, and now it's just bam, it's out and it's rolling, and it's going to be tough to put the cat back in the bag here. How do you see this trend developing over the past or over the next like year or so, and how are you thinking about playing it now that we've seen this huge move in MP?
I missed this one, and I'm not going to chase it higher. I hate that I missed it. I got shaken out when it sounded like Trump was going to start lightening up on China a little bit, and because that's the linchpin in all of this, right? Is this trade war with China and the fact we get most of our rare earths from China. But regardless of what the outcome of the trade war is we are reshoring very critical industries like rare earth production, whether we get along with China or not. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, for all I know, this could go from a $10 billion company to a $50 billion company over the next couple of years. It has the only, rare earth, processing mill in the country. So, I mean, but the way I prefer to play this trend is I'd rather speculate in some of these other, rare earth stocks that aren't functional mines yet, but have very, very large deposits. So in Microcap Millionaire, we recommend USAR. And that was also a trade that Enrique put on in his service. I think he made like a quick like 50% on that one. And so you can see this one's following in MP's footsteps.
Yeah.
But this is a $1.4 billion company, and they have an 80% stake in the largest rare earth resource deposit basically outside of China, and that's in West Texas. So and we've given this one out publicly before, so I don't mind sharing this pick.
Yeah.
That's normally behind our paywall, but I mean this is one that is almost definitely going to become an actual mine. Um, because MP, it's sort of a similar thing to the drones. Like MP can't do it all. Like we need
Right.
so many rare earths, and that's why we've also seen things like TMC, which is just the stupidest company. I mean, who are we really gonna mine rare earths out of the sea? Maybe, I don't know. There's an argument to be made that like it's more socially feasible. because like
Yeah.
not in my backyard. Um, but I so there's another one. I think it's called American Rare Earths. That's an over-the-counter stock.
Ooh.
Um,
Do you have a ticker?
yeah. Oh my God, that's up 37% today. ARRNF.
Good grief. Why didn't you tell me about this one
Yeah, I know, right?
on Thursday? Where were we on that?
But it's only 175 million Australian dollars,
Good
which
grief.
I can't remember how that correlates to USD. It's similar. Okay, so oh yeah, that's like $100 million uh, US market cap. So I would look into this one a little bit closer. I mean, this is one that could just keep going. Another one that I think is interesting is Critical Metals Corp.
What's that ticker?
That's up 22% today.
What's the ticker on
Um,
that one?
CRML. So yeah, here we go. Here we go. So what's interesting about them is they have a, God, that's disgusting. It's up how much over the last? Okay, not as much as, okay, it's up 150% from its lows. Um, this is a company that has a rare earth deposit in Greenland. So that creates an interesting political angle to this. But the issue with this company is their rare earths may be so deeply buried under ice that it's possible they'll never be able to access them. But I think this is another one on like pure price speculation. It's probably just going to keep going up because they're going to see if they can get these metals. But I just think as we're in this trend, this is where I look at it more on like a technical aspect and within the context of a larger trend. If you don't think the rare earth theme is going to die down soon, this is one that could just keep running.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
and
mean,
this is a micro cap. I mean, this is $360 million. It trades on the Nasdaq, whereas American Rare Earths, that's an over-the-counter stock. You can buy that pretty pretty easily, but this one's a lot easier to buy. You can buy this one in Robinhood, for instance.
yeah. Yeah. Interesting
I,
stuff. I mean,
I would prefer to buy stuff like this in USAR right now over MP. And I'm probably wrong in saying that. You should just buy the leader, just shut up and buy the leader. But it's like I said, it's gonna be an all hands on deck situation to reshore the 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 rare earth production in the United States.
sure. I mean, from a trading perspective, though, you have MP, and that's the move, not necessarily the news, but the move in MP here is the catalyst to get all the other interest in these other stocks. And so
Correct.
MP creates the trading opportunities in these smaller names where I think you can grab the fast gains. I think that MP is probably the quote unquote safest play. I know it's incredibly extended here. And maybe this is just a buy the dip, set it and forget it, kind of you stair step your way into this type of play since it's so far up from where it was, just a week ago. But you look at some of those smaller ones, and I think this is where the trading opportunities are created. And this is not unlike the basket of theme stocks we were talking about earlier. I mean, I feel like that's just how traders behave, and you get these rotations amongst these themes. And right now, there's this massive rotation going into rare earths. I don't think that some of those smaller companies are going to be able to sustain those moves for months
Right.
and months and months. But I think they have the best chance of giving you those pops where it's like, hey, this is up 50% in a day.
Yeah.
Because everybody's just rolling with them. And like right now, if you look at how things are going too, I feel like we're on the cusp of everybody piling into stuff like uranium. If you look at like a longer term chart of, let's say, like CCJ, um, it's had a big move right here. But if you keep on pulling out and looking at this thing, you realize just how far it could go. And these are tough to trade. Some of these, especially the smaller uranium stocks. I think somebody earlier, I haven't been keeping that close an eye on chats since we've been talking so much. Somebody mentioned Quad U. I mean, this
Yeah.
is right at a breakout area right here. This is something I was watching, and you kind of got to wait for them to consolidate a little bit to really get into them because they're a little bit overextended here. But
Right.
it feels like we're entering that type of environment, not unlike how it was in like what was it, like 2011, when it was just metals mania and rare earths were popping. What was the old rare earths ETF? Is that still around? What is it? Remex? Yeah, it's still there. So,
Hmm.
there were these rare earth stocks that traded and they were hot all summer. And this was quite a while ago. But then
Yeah.
like everybody was trading, uranium, rare earths, and all these other little weird metals and stuff like that. And it was the right environment for it. And this feels very similar to me,
Yes.
where these stocks they ran all summer, which is funny. That's the same time of year, but they will just run, and people will just pile into them. And it doesn't really matter what the market's doing with some of these either. That's kind of incredible as well, is that we could have a situation where broad market pulls back and you have like rare earths, they're still like just like ripping because the story is so powerful that people are just chasing them. They don't really care what's going on with the rest of the market.
Right. Yeah, we recommended UU as well, and
Okay.
we're finally positive on that one. We got into it at about $6.50, and so we were down pretty significantly in April when it was $3.50. But this is just one that I have a longer time horizon on as well because it is the largest producer of uranium in the United States. They produce about 2/3 of the uranium that we use in our nuclear reactors, and
Yeah.
I just I think the economics of uranium, the price per pound is going to go a lot higher because it's an international market. China's building hundreds of nuclear reactors, of course, developing new SMR technology, which requires less uranium for sure. But I think there's a huge consolidation in this stock over the last 4 years, and I don't know if this is a 10 bagger necessarily, but this is one of those like, okay, like this is AI fuel essentially is what uranium is.
Yeah.
Right. So
I like that. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it's
that's,
amazing. I mean, the chart's amazing.
yeah,
This is an awesome, awesome chart.
yeah,
I mean, it's definitely worth watching. So, I mean, like it's something that I'm interested in getting involved in when the timing is just right. It's again, these are tough to trade because you get these straight up moves right here, and you kind of got to wait and see how they consolidate to get those entry spots that I like. But overall, I mean, you can't argue with the fact that this thing is turning around. I love how it undercut this shelf of lows right here and
yes,
shook everybody out when it
yeah,
was down in the low threes back in April. And now, I mean, like I wouldn't be surprised if next time we talked on here, this wasn't $12.
yep.
Love it. Chris, we're out of time, but my favorite part of having you on is you always give me tickers that I haven't thought about before because you're more involved in the microcap space than me. And so I don't know if you noticed, but like when you're talking, sometimes I'm reaching over, like I'm
Yeah, jot
writing
that down
stuff
for
down in
later.
my
Yeah.
pad, not just to remember to talk to you about it later, but also for myself to remember to go check out those charts. So I appreciate all your insight, especially in crypto, some of these other tech themes. It's always great talking to you. We'll have you back on soon.
Yeah, we didn't even have a chance to talk about all the crazy trades I've been making, Greg.
Well, we'll get to them. We'll get to
We'll
them.
get to them. We'll get
Make
to
me a
them.
deal. Give me 10 more 10x trades
Yeah,
between now and the next time we talk, and then I'll let you talk about some of the trades you've been making. How about that?
that sounds great.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.